49ers free agency is in full swing. And so we got to do the call-in show early because it only makes sense. I've gotten my takes off over the last 24 hours. I've gotten my takes off through Twitter. And now it's your turn to get your takes off right here on Last Second Sports. So how do you feel about free agency so far? Is there a player that you wish they had brought back? Is there a player you wish that they had signed? Do you like the Hargrave signing? Where are you at right now? What is the pulse check on the San Francisco 49ers and how they are doing in free agency? So, call-in show is for you to sound off on all those things, and we're going to do it next. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And as I said, it is call-in show day, which means it's your day to sound off. The link is pinned to the top of the chat. So if you want to get in early, get your take off, and get out, and then go enjoy the chat with everybody else. The title of this show is The 49ers Are Not Better at This Point in Free Agency. And I think that upset a lot of people. Maybe not the title necessarily, but just the conversation on Twitter, even the conversation that I posted in the community. A lot of people were very, very upset that I said this. And I get it. I mean, as Niner fans, you don't want to hear these things about your team. But here's a couple things that I didn't say. And this is where people took the conversation. I didn't say that they didn't make a great signing in Hargrave. That is not at all what I said. And I definitely didn't say that they cannot get better still. In fact, I said it's very early in free agency. A lot can happen. I am not saying that it's set in stone. Hell, technically, free agency doesn't even start until tomorrow. This is the legal tampering period. I'm just saying at this very moment, with the players that are coming in and the players that are going out, I do not believe in this second that the 49ers are better off. So we'll see. We'll see if they can get better. I'm sure that they can. You guys can sound off and tell me what you think, but it definitely stirred up a lot of conversation. We're going to go with Hadiz, Mr. Blue Magic, and then Niner Gang. That is the order. So let's get it cracking. What's up, Hadiz? It says you're muted. I don't know if that's on your end, on my end. No, it says you're muted. Here, leave and come back in. Leave and come back. Yeah. All right. We'll see if Hadiz can get his stuff figured out here. While he's doing that, let me say what's up to the chat. Feeling decent. Lots of activity. Need secondary help with the loss of Ward and Mosley. Yeah, that's kind of my point. Right now, I think the 49ers are worse as far as... Here it is. I'm going to kick you and then have you come back. I think the 49ers are worse in the secondary. I don't think that's really debatable. I think they're worse on O-line. Now, here's the thing. I think we expected these things to happen for the most part. We expected Ward to leave. We knew Mosley was a question mark to stay. Ebukam, McGlinchey. Like, these moves we expected. That's totally fine, but what are you doing to make up for it? And I think that's kind of where I'm at with it. So, all right, let's try Hadiz again. What's up, Hadiz?
How's it going, Jesse?
Good. All right, I got you.
All right. Wow, your tweet kind of riled a couple people up this morning.
Yeah, a little bit. Actually, you're really, really scratchy. Like, I don't know if that's just on my end. Chat, you guys tell me. What do you guys think? Is he a little scratchy?
You want me to talk just to see what their opinion is?
Yeah, it's definitely getting a little scratchy. I don't know what's going on. What are you talking on? Are you talking on your phone? You talking on headset?
On my phone. AirPods.
Oh, on AirPods? Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
If it's bad, I don't want to ruin it. So I could just leave if that's an issue.
Yeah, it says scratchy. Leave. Let's try one more time. I'm going to kick you out. I'm going to go with Mr. Blue Magic, and then I'll get back to you, okay?
All right. Thanks, Jesse.
All right. Yeah. All right, let's go Mr. Blue Magic. What's up, man?
Jesse, what's mobbing?
How you doing?
Jesse, you are absolutely right. We are not better at this point.
Okay.
And to believe that we are is asinine. The secondary, our secondary, that loss is ridiculous. And we do need to be patient because we can make some moves through well, actually, I don't know how much we got left in the cap, so we're gonna have to do a lot of restructuring, and we're gonna have to knock this draft out. But for some reason, we always do well late in the draft, so I believe there's some gems. The only problem I have with that is the fact that it seems like Kyle does not want to start or give rookies legitimate chances. Now, um, so I was listening. I listened to you all, I listened to you, Grant, and everybody else. The whole Trey Lance thing.
Let's talk about it.
We have what Kyle and everyone else says is two starting quarterbacks. I love Trey. Trey has not gotten a fair shot. It is mind boggling. I hope one day he comes out and explains how he felt through it all.
Mm.
But here's how I look at it. If Trey does what he's supposed to or not, Brock comes back and he's healthy, we need to trade one of them.
You think
It's
this year we have to, Mr. Blue Magic?
depending on how well they both play. Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's going back to the not trading Jimmy mode. Why do we keep having quarterbacks looking over their shoulders?
Mm.
I don't even with Brock. Brock did okay, and he's a way better upgrade than Jimmy. In my opinion, Jimmy was trash, like from day one till now. Thank you, Raiders, for Raidering. But we because we've gone through so much, we get mesmerized by a couple of wins. Now, don't get me wrong, Brock showed a lot. His moxie was the best thing I seen from him. He took command. He said, "Listen, nobody gave me a shot. Last pick in the draft. What do I have to lose? Absolutely nothing. I'm gonna go do what I want to do," which I love. Quick release, but as you pointed out during the season, we overlooked the little things. There was a lot of dropped interceptions that Brock could have had. There were some open reads, so forth and so on. He's young, granted, but this every year quarterback competition, every year not knowing who the guy is. Can we pick a guy? I don't care if it's Trey, I don't care if it's Brock. Can we pick a guy and put everything into the guy?
Mm. I think that's super important, and I think that's something they have to figure out this year. And unfortunately, because Trey hasn't had the games under his belt, and Brock Purdy's coming off of an injury, I think that those things are going to be rushed a little bit. But they do have to figure it out through this year. And so I'm with you as far as getting rid of one. I just don't know if it necessarily has to happen this year. I think it has
I
to
don't
happen
think.
after this season.
I don't think it will because even with Trey to get rid of him this year, the cap hit is gonna be sufficient. But we need to get the best out of both of them. Hopefully, they're both playing exceptionally well, or at least Trey's playing exceptionally well. We don't see Brock, but Brock comes back healthy. And Kyle, pick one, move on, and let's rock.
I'm with you, Mr. Blue Magic. Great call. We'll talk soon, all right?
All right.
Later. He's right. I mean, he's definitely right. He's definitely right. Better on defense, worse on offense. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the secondary is worse, clearly. Again, I think that they have time to get they have plenty of time to get better. I know they have plenty of time to get better. Here's what I don't understand though, and 49ers for life. I don't want you to think that I'm picking on you. I want to bring this up because I got this comment a lot, and also and basically this comment leading to, oh, Mosley's not a big loss all of a sudden because he was hurt, or we didn't have Mosley last year, so it's really not a loss. Just because somebody was hurt, it doesn't mean that they aren't important to this roster. And I guess my issue is, I know we can't sign everybody. It's asinine to think that we can sign everybody. And I don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, we lost our players. What are we going to do? Like, I know we can't sign everybody. I know there was certain players that weren't going to be re-signed. I totally understand that. I'm also not the guy that's like, every time a big free agent comes free or a guy gets cut, I'm like, we got to go get him. That's not realistic. But when Mosley signed for $6 million, I think we can all agree, regardless of what your thoughts are on Mosley, we thought that number was going to be higher. So a 1-year prove-it deal is kind of what we thought might happen coming off of an injury. I think we thought that number was going to be close to double. So for $6 million to lose him, I think that's a bit of a gut punch. And then when you add in that they didn't get better, it's offensive line. I understand that they were going to lose McGlinchey. Smart not to pay him. But they could have brought in like a Bradbury. Bradbury didn't even get paid that much. He got paid like just over $5 million a year. Everybody thought he was going to be in the 9 to 12 range. So that's another guy that, okay, so if you offered him $6 million a year, you could have gotten the deal done, but you decided, no, that's too much. That's too rich for our blood. We'll just bring back Brendel, who's cool, I guess. A lot of people are like, well, he only gave up 1 sack and he was a Pro Bowl alternate. Brendel's not as good as Bradbury. He's just not. So you could have upgraded at center for not very expensive. You didn't do that. And they were in on Bradbury. The fact that deal happened, bang, bang, it was like Bradbury deal announced, 1 minute later, Brendel deal announced. That tells me they were in on Bradbury. They weren't willing to go there. And then they're like, okay, let's double back around. We'll go with Brendel. So they could have upgraded at center. They chose not to. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Mosley, again, yes, he was hurt, but they have zero depth at corner. Like right now, your starting corners are cool. I love me some Diamador Lenore. I'm an Oregon Duck guy. So I was on Diamador as soon as he came out. I love the pick. Obviously, homerism, right? So I love Diamador Lenore. But what's behind him? Is Quantrez Knight your guy? Are you cool with playing Ambry Thomas? A lot of people don't like Ambry Thomas. He didn't get any burn last year. That's where we're at right now. There's no depth. And so they have to figure that out. They can do it through the draft or whatever, but there's some things that they got to figure out. There's absolutely some things that they got to figure out. All right, Hadiz, we're going to come to you again. Let's see if we can get this thing working for you. What's up?
Is it better?
Much better, yes.
Oh, I had to switch AirPods out, but wow. I mean, free agency started a lot different than what I thought it was going to be. Niners usually take it on a chill route, a mellow route. They might tip their foot in, right? But signing a D tackle, re-signing the center, I thought Jake Brendel was going to dip out, but I'm surprised he signed back in. But I think the most surprising move was the Niners not signing Emmanuel Mosley back again. That's one piece I thought the Niners knew that they were kind of lacking in. They don't have a lot of depth in the corner piece. They have Travarius Ward, Diamador Lenore, Samuel Womack, and now who?
And that's about it.
That's a pretty concerning. I think where the Niners are going to look at and how to bring pieces is, I think they're going to look at the draft. They're going to hopefully ask Steve Wilks, hey, if you were to pick a corner in this year's draft, who do you think it will be? And, obviously, probably not our first-round talent, but I saw the Seahawks do it last year with Tariq Woolen. What's to say the Niners can't pick the right guy in this year's draft? And I wouldn't mind the Niners trading up to the second round trying to pick their guy because they have a lot of picks in this year's draft. But the problem is cornerbacks, it's a dime of dozens because there's some good ones and then there's some Ambry Thomases, there's some bad corners. I think the Niners should draft a center. That's what I thought they were going to do. I thought they were going to get Cortland Sutton, but it looks like the Lions stole him. And now I think the Niners should go into the draft, ask Steve Wilkes what they should do. But I want to know what your take on the corner should be for this offseason.
Man, I don't know. I don't know what the direction is that they go. We are getting some news coming in. Chiefs brought in a Minahu. It looks like Fred Warner restructured his deal, which makes a lot of sense. The three people that we talked about here on Last Second Sports that we thought were going to restructure were going to be Fred Warner, Christian McCaffrey, and Charvarius Ward. And we said with the $8 million they had in cap, that would put them around $45 million. They did Charvarius Ward yesterday. They have to do Charvarius Ward's deal because they need to get under the cap so they can sign the players that they went out and either re-signed or what have you. And then now the Fred Warner one tells me that they're trying to get somebody big. So we'll see. I mean, is that somebody? Maybe they're going to take a big swing on Orlando Brown, which doesn't necessarily want to play right tackle, but there is some connections there with he and Trent Williams. So maybe they can talk him into playing right tackle for a year or two until Trent retires. That would be massive. Maybe they go out and get a Yannick Ngakoue. Obviously, that would be massive. But as far as the cornerback position, man, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. I think draft makes a ton of sense. I do think also Contraz Knight is a guy to look out for. I mean, he was on this team. They gave him that future deal for a reason, so maybe they like him a lot. So we'll see. We'll see what happens here.
Before I go, I just wanted to ask, or I wanted to say, the Niners, they haven't had that pass rusher next to Nick Bosa since D Ford. Free agency starts tomorrow, and I guess you kind of lingered at Unique Ngakoue. But for me, I think if the Niners want to go really solidify that pass rush, even though I really think they shouldn't, and improve right tackle, I think if they are, they're going to go for Zadarius Smith. They try to just bring him in, try to spend a little money on him. That would make the D-line, in my opinion, elite. Top 3 or top 2, and really solidify that core. Yeah, you have Drake Jackson behind there, and I know a lot of people want to see Drake Jackson take on that role, but I just don't think he's ready yet. And I kind of hate to say it, but I just don't think Drake Jackson's there yet. I think the Niners should take a defensive end in this free agency and try to get a right tackle and draft.
Yeah, I think as far as defensive ends go, there's a lot of options out there. So I'm not necessarily so worried about that. For me, it was the offensive line. I knew they weren't going to be able to upgrade a right tackle unless they somehow get Brown. That would be, that would be crazy. But I think that center was the area that they could. And being in on Bradbury and then missing out on him when he certainly came in under market value. I mean, Ethan Pochik, who's a guy that I liked, talked about him a lot. He signed for more money a year than Bradbury. And the reason I like Pochik is because I thought he was just as good as Bradbury, maybe slightly worse. They're the same age. And I figured he would be less. He was actually more. They could have gotten Bradbury for the same exact price as Pochik. To me, it just doesn't make sense to give that extra $1 million a year, give him a 3-year, $18 million and call it a day. I mean, he's a good center for very, very cheap. And I don't know, I guess they're sold on Brendel, or maybe, the price for Brendel, he doesn't necessarily have to be a starter the full time that he's here either. I don't look at that deal and say, okay, he's for sure the center for the next 4 years. That's not the way that I read that deal. In fact, I look at it and say, okay, he's a guy that's here. He's probably the starter for now, but if they get somebody better or Zakel develops the way they want, he easily could turn into a backup player. So I don't look at him and say at that price that they got him, he's for sure the starting center either. So.
Well, that's all I wanted to talk about, Jesse. I appreciate you trying to understand my mic issues.
I got you, man. It's no big deal. We'll talk soon. All right, Hades?
All right. Later, Jesse.
Later. Hey, it happens. Mic issues happen. No big deal, man. No big deal. We'll stick with you. We will stick with you. Yeah, Lenore, people are saying that Lenore was, yeah, I agree. By the way, Minahu definitely a bigger loss. Definitely a bigger loss. Definitely a bigger loss. I know it's going to be okay. I'm not like tripping. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying at this point, they're not better. It's okay to say it. It's okay to say it. They are in on Robbie Gold. They're at least working with Robbie Gold. It sounds like Robbie Gold has the 49ers. They didn't say who the other team is, but there is another team on the hook. So curious to see if they can bring him back versus maybe going with somebody in the draft. I don't know. I'm interested to see how that plays out. All right, let's go with Niner Gang, Gammon, and then Brian. What's up, Niner Gang?
What's going on, Jess? How we doing tonight?
Doing fantastic, man. How are you?
Oh man, I'm hanging in there doing a little bit of work, but gonna get on this Niner stuff already, One thing I want to say though is I just want to thank the Raiders.
Yeah,
I just I gotta thank the Raiders. I don't gotta worry about Jimmy no more. And two, I know for sure I ain't gonna hear nothing from no Raider fans next year because you know what Jimmy's gonna do. And tell me I'm lying. Did they get rid of Darren Waller? Did I see that today?
Yeah, he third round pick to the Giants. Yep.
Wow. Okay. All right. Yeah, good luck, man. Anyways, back to
yeah. Good luck. Exactly. Yeah, that was kind of crazy, man. I didn't expect that Waller deal to go down. That's a really good player for not a lot. I'll say that.
no. Well, I mean, we all know, Jimmy's Jimmy and protect him and give him some decent weapons and he'll win you some games, you know what I mean? But most quarterbacks will. But man, they're giving away the pieces. But anyways, that's enough about them. I just wanted to thank them. But hey, so we gonna I feel like they got a secret plan for this right tackle position, letting go of McGlinchey. I heard Grant, I think it was Grant and Lowell today on their show. They were talking about Grant's feeling like, they might be trying to trade Ayuk underneath the wraps, get a first rounder or something. What's your take on that?
I don't think so. I hope not anyways. For me, when I look at the future of the wide receiver position, and I think I know where Grant's coming from on this. I didn't hear him talk about it today, but we've talked about it in the past in private and on the show. And I think where he's coming from is, well, you can't pay everybody. And I do understand that notion.
Facts.
But the way that I see it is by the time his contract gets big, Debo's in the final year of his deal. And that's when you get rid of Debo because he's younger than Debo. I think he's a pure receiver and Debo's not that. And so I think that he would be my long-term play and, draft receivers, but have him be your veteran guy. I really like what Ayuk brought to the table, not only from a play standpoint, because he certainly stepped up last year, but just as a leadership role. You look at everything that he's gone through from the doghouse to just the way that he talks about the team, the way he talks about his teammates. You see a leader in Brandon Ayuk. He's a natural leader. He's quiet to us and the media and all these other things, but behind the scenes, this guy is a real deal leader, and players talk about that and they appreciate that. So for me, Brandon Ayuk's the guy that you want to keep long term, not Debo.
I could not agree with you more. I felt like last year, honestly, I've been watching sports for a long time. Debo had a fantastic season, when they turned him into the wide back. But I would think we agree that, you can't really sustain that type of play for any longer period than what he did. I mean, it's rough on your body. Teams prepare for you, prep for you. I mean, there's a lot of things. You don't have the same squad as you had the year that you have a season like that. So, and then the way Debo kind of went about his contract and everything else, I was like, let this guy go. I mean, he's super expensive. And then he come back and I was really disappointed. Not gonna lie, I was disappointed, even though all his little off-season stuff, whatever, come back, have a great season, all that's forgotten. But bro, it just carried onto the field. I mean, if we hadn't have got McCaffrey, I think our season would have been washed. I really, really do. Brandon Ayuk is one. I don't know. Javon's pretty darn good. I got to give Javon, give him credit. He's not an Ayuk or nothing, but as far as consistency last year, Brandon Ayuk, Debo, Kettle came on strong towards the end. I mean, Debo wasn't real consistent. I think he had some drops. And Kittle did pretty good towards the end of the season once, Brock came on. But Ayuk's a stud. It's a fantastic receiver, great route runner. And like you said a second ago, he's about the team. He's out there bodying people, slamming them. We watched what he did to the Cowboys defender, Diggs.
He's a great blocker too, man. He does the little things well. I see his effort compared to Debo's on a lot of these. I go back and I watch the game on all 22, and you start to notice little things, just little things. And I'm not, I don't want to turn this into like a bashing Debo session. That's not
no, never that.
And
never
I know
that
you're not either. I just want to be clear because people,
100%.
But you see little things, and Ayuk's effort is always there. There's never a question with his effort. Debo has his, things from time to time where you wish he would run a clear out route a little bit better, or he would block a little bit better, and just little things like that. And I see that Rini says we can't trade Debo though, and right now we can't. I'm not advocating for trading Debo now. What I'm saying is when that Ayuk contract kicks in, which isn't really for 3 more seasons, so you can have Debo this year. The next year is the 5th-year option for Brandon Ayuk. You can have him next year, no problem. And then after next season is when you would trade Debo Samuel. So still 2 more seasons of Debo Samuel, then trade him while Brandon Ayuk's big contract kicks in. So I'm saying not this year, not the year after, but the season after that is when you trade Debo Samuel and keep Brandon Ayuk. That's what I would do.
That's not a bad plan at all. Not a bad plan at all. I'm just, for the money he's taken up and the production he gives, this is hypothetical, I don't hate Debo. I love Debo. He's a great player, but sure. I like just sports in general, and I want to see the effort. And, unless the ball's going to Debo, like you said, there's more than not of plays, he don't finish the route. He doesn't run it through. Now, when you give the boy the ball, he's fantastic. He's explosive. Not denying that, but kind of reminds me of like a OBJ. I want the ball. But I love Debo, hands down. He's a great player. We wouldn't have went to the Super Bowl. We wouldn't have done what we did without him. But if I had to choose, I would have to stick with Ayuk over Debo. And that's just long-term longevity of the team and what's been going on through and through. Like you said, Brandon, he's been in the doghouse, etc. He's still out there blocking, laying people down, doing what he has to do. Gets 2 or 3 targets a game.
Yeah, and the other thing that I like too, man, is that Danny Gray talked about it a lot, how he helped him through this year. It was kind of a rough rookie year for him, and it was Brandon Ayuk that was like, hey, man, just keep trying, keep the effort, do this. Just so you know, the coaches are expecting these things from you. I think those little things go a long way, and again, looking at him like a leader, Danny Gray and young wide receivers need to hear it, because unfortunately for Ayuk, he didn't hear it until it was too late and he was already in the doghouse and not doing as good. And then all of a sudden he and Shanahan had to get together weeks into the season and things got turned around once he knew what the expectations were. But Danny Gray and some of these other guys don't know the expectations. And so for Brandon Ayuk to pull them aside and say, hey, I don't want you to go through what I had to go through. Here is what you aren't doing well. Here's what the coaches are going to be looking for. And until you can do these things, you're not going to get a lot of playing time. Just so you know, this is what you need to work on. I love that. That is leadership 101. And I love to hear those things. Brandon Ayuk is the one working out with Trey Lance in the offseason and working with all these other quarterbacks. And I know that Debo had his contract stuff. I understand why he wasn't involved in last offseason. I'll be curious to see what he does this offseason. If he gets involved with Trey Lance or Sam Darnold or, whoever to just try to level their game up. So, I just think Ayuk is a bona fide leader. I think those things come naturally and you either are or you are not. And Ayuk certainly is. I'm not saying Debo's not. I haven't seen it from Debo the way that I see it from Ayuk though.
Oh yeah, you can't deny that. Unbelievably, and glad you brought up Danny Gray, man. That guy, I don't know where he disappeared to. The guy's extremely fast. I would have to say, in my opinion, doesn't mean anything, but I'm just have to say that I don't think we have a quarterback with an arm to allow him to stretch the field to get his full potential. And maybe he'll come out this year because maybe he didn't, understand the route running. Maybe that's something else Ayuk may have helped him with,
He wasn't a good blocker either. That definitely showed up on film.
Oh yeah, Hunter. He's a little thinner guy. He's not a real yoked out guy like Ayuk. Boy, that boy's big. That boy got some meat on him. So does Debo, you know. But Gray, he's just super fast, man. And I think unless they get, I mean, even with Brock at his best, nothing against Brock, not knocking him, you know, but I don't really believe he has the arm to match his speed neither, you know. But I guess if that's not what we're working with through and through, get rid of Gray, you know.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this thing plays out. Niner gang, I got to get to the next one, brother.
Yes, sir.
We went an extra 5 minutes, but that was a good conversation.
Oh,
I
man.
appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Jesse. Have a good night, buddy. Let's
All
go.
right, brother. Have a good
Later.
one later. That was good. That was a good conversation. I always enjoy some good conversation. Yeah, Frank, man, your Lions are looking good. I'm not gonna lie. I said it on Twitter today. I said, this may be a hot take, which I don't think it is. I think the Lions are the team that the 49ers are going to end up running into, possibly in that NFC Championship game. I think they're going to be the tough team this year. They're going to be the team that ascends. The Lions needed defensive help. They could use a linebacker. They needed another pass rusher. They needed a couple corners. They've gotten the corners now in free agency. They have 2 first-round picks. They have 2 second-round picks. They can certainly get the pass rusher and linebackers through there. The Lions are coming up very, very quick. And for anybody, this is the other thing is a lot of people talk crap about Jared Goff. Jared Goff's a 3-time Pro Bowler. And I'm not saying Jared Goff's great. That's not at all what I'm saying. If I was the Lions, I'd be going all in on Lamar Jackson. That's me personally. However, Jared Goff right now, for what he's brought in this league, performing the way he has for 2 different organizations, Jared Goff is more stable than what the 49ers have at the quarterback position right now. So as 49er fans, I don't think we're in a situation where we can look at the Lions and be like, yeah, but they have Jared Goff. We're not scared of Jared Goff. I'm not saying to be scared of Jared Goff, but Jared Goff right now is more stable than we have at the quarterback position. Now, I do believe that if our quarterbacks hit their stride, they certainly can and should be better than Jared Goff long-term. But right now, I think it's really tough as 49er fans to make any claim about teams that have stability at the quarterback position because we do not have that at all. At all. There you go. You guys get Bobby Wagner. That would be a great pickup for y'all. A huge pickup. So curious to see. I see somebody talking about a Minahu. Yes, he went to the Chiefs, man. He went to the Chiefs. Black Cat Panther podcast. What up, man? What are you guys doing with that number 1 pick now? What are y'all doing? He said, I'm glad y'all took, oh yeah, Ghost Guy off of us. Yeah. You guys were happy to get rid of Sam Darnold. I get it. But Sam Darnold, it was different, right? Because Sam Darnold was brought in to be a starter for you guys. For us, he's presumably our 3rd string quarterback. So a little bit different scenario. All right, I'm going to get to Gammon and then I'm going to get to Brian. Link is pinned to the top of the chat. So if you want to come in, I would say now is the time. We got 10 more minutes until we would get to you. Let's go. What's up, Gammon?
Man, rocking and rolling. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Doing fantastic.
Yeah, I really like having Debo and Brandon Ayuk for the near term and then the long term. One thing is when you look at them statistically, Debo Samuel is our zone busting wide receiver. His statistics compared to Brandon Ayuk in the zone are just unmatched. They're uncanny. But you put that on the inverse. You look at Brandon Ayuk's ability to, when they square us up in man, that's Brandon Ayuk's, strong suit. That's his calling card. So a lot of teams would prefer to play this team in zone. So in that way, then I think it makes it a little bit easier as far as chasing all the formations, all the movement that you have there. Also, too, no discredit against Brandon Ayuk. I love them both damn near equally. But let's be honest here. Defensive coordinators were not installing a game plan with Brandon Ayuk in mind. It was Debo Samuel. When you looked at Twitter, the corners or the defenses, the players themselves were not going after Brandon Ayuk. They're going after Debo Samuel, right? So mentally, physically, everything like that. The number 1 corner that the team had, right? Jalen Ramsey was not going after Brandon Ayuk. He was shadowing Deebo Samuel. So with that all being said, again, no discredit to Brandon Ayuk, but let's remember there was somebody who was taking on the number one, cornerback on the enemy team, and then also too all the coverages and everybody was watching where Deebo Samuel was going.
Now let me ask you this real quick.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're throwing shade at all. I think what you're saying right now is factual, Kevin. No doubt about that. I guess my thing is I'm projecting in 3 years from now. So in 3 years from now, where are they at in their careers? And I think Brandon Ayuk's going to continue to ascend. I think Deebo is going to. I'm not going to say that Deebo in 3 years is just going to be garbage. That's not what I'm saying. But in 3 years, he's 29, pushing that 30 years old. I think at that time is when you say, okay, if I have to pay one, do I pay 26-year-old Brandon Ayuk, or do I pay 29-year-old Deebo Samuel? And that's kind of where I'm at with it. So I think in the 3-year mark, that's when you would make presumably a move, including Deebo Samuel.
3 years from now, I wholeheartedly agree with that. 3 years from now, I could see that being more so of a move for sure. But from now until 3 years from now, I definitely see them as complementary in what they do.
For sure.
The other thing too is I think that as a team as a whole, I'm kind of in agreement with you, Jesse. We've gotten a little bit worse, but not too much. But not a lot. I don't think it's very drastic. We're going to
And there's
come
still
out of
time.
the
There's still time, right, Gammon? Like we're not
gate.
like trying to pull the fire alarm here. We're not panicking. We're just saying as of right now, it's okay to say that they're probably not as good as they were when they started the offseason.
Absolutely. Losing, probably not having Brunskill, that could be a huge loss. But we're looking at a lot of the old Falcons players, right? A lot of them are starting to funnel themselves out of the league. Julio Jones, Matt Ryan, right? Now you're looking at Brunskill. Some of these guys that came over as a Falcons mainstay are starting to get a little long in the tooth, and it's showing up in their play. And I think for me, the big thing to note will be who do they select it. So the thing that this draft is really deep in, and it's defensive end, safety, and tight end. So to me, it'll be really kind of big to see what other defensive end they get there, because if you have a really good 1-2 kind of punch between a freshman and a sophomore on one side, you might be able to get the job done. But I'm going to make a statement here. I'm really big on tight end Darnell Washington from the University of Georgia. He's 6'7", inline blocker. I think he's somebody that could eventually, after this season, make somebody like Javon Jennings, expendable. Also, to the formations that you can run out of there. I think Javon Jennings is amazing. As far as Gray goes, right, there's a saying that I have: no block, no rock. Unless you can block, and we have some of the out of our trio of wide receivers, Javon Jennings, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. I would put them up against any other trio of wide receivers in the league as far as run blocking goes.
I agree.
But I really like Darnell Washington. And then I think whatever defensive end that they end up drafting, because I think they'll end up pulling the plug on that one. But as far as this person's asking, re-sign Gold wholeheartedly. I think that without that, it just makes certain things so much more of a reassurance. I was actually watching the Cowboys game and the 49ers playoff game with another buddy who's in the military, and he was a Cowboys fan. I remember we watched the game before that, and I was looking at their kicker, and I was like, man, we get into a nail biter of a game. Like, you want somebody who's going to be automatic. Mm-hmm. I get it. Gold doesn't boot those 50-plus yarders, but we're talking about a team that can absolutely get you within that 35, 20-yard range, and you want to know that it's money at that point, right? So I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel like, to me, and we've been very blessed with the kickers that we've had: Akers, Phil Dawson, Gold. I mean, that is just, if you have a good kicker, you don't let him walk out the door at all.
Yeah, I'll answer it here in a second. I got a couple people waiting, Gammon, but I hear you. I like you're saying no rock, no block, no rock. I do like that, and I think that is a Shanahan thought as well. Great call as always, Gammon. We'll talk soon. All right, brother.
Yes, and one last thing,
Mhm.
the free agency signing that we had with Hargrave is an outstanding signing because it's not taking into the fact that the cap is going to be keep going up or increasing about 20 to 25 million projected over the next few years. So they got Hargrave to basically sign a contract without somehow the shame on that agent for not also too factoring in how much the cap is projected to go up. Thank you for your time.
All right, brother. Yeah, they did a good job. I mean, Hargrave was 6.6 million this year, and then next year is like 15, and then they can let him go the year after for minimal cap hit. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's where the 49ers do excel is in their contracts and how they structure them and making sure that they have outs and all these other things. And so I definitely want to give them credit for that. They do always a good job there. And I think Gammon makes a good point. As a 49er fans, we haven't had to worry about the kicker position for quite some time. We've had some really, really good ones. Really, really good ones. Dawson, Akers, and now Gold. Gold is a little long in the tooth. If I do a deal with him, I would probably do a 1-year deal. Right now, as far as free agent kickers, I mean, there's not a lot out there. And, you know, in the draft, there's like one guy that everybody's talking about. You'd probably have to go maybe a round early to make sure that you get a guy like that, just so that you don't miss out, especially if that's the situation you're going into. So, yeah, I mean, I would rather be in a situation where we're not trying out kickers and have 2 kickers on the team battling it out through the preseason. I mean, that's not a comfortable spot to be in, but I also don't want to pay a bunch of money to Robbie Gold. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where he's at and if they end up signing him. I have a feeling he'll probably be back on a 1-year deal, but no certainty there. And Black Cat Panther podcast says he thinks CJ Stroud is going to be the number 1 pick, but he wants AR-15. Interesting. I'll say this about AR-15, man. I did some work this this last weekend in the quarterbacks and went a little crazy. Spent about 6 hours watching film on the top 4 just so I can get a pulse on what I thought. I think Stroud is incredible. I think he's my guy. I had him at 1, but I did have AR-15 at 1A. And I think a lot of people are looking at AR-15 and they're saying he's unpolished. And he does need to fix his accuracy. I'm not denying that. But when you look at the little nuances of playing quarterback, AR-15 is better than what people think. He out of all the quarterbacks, believe it or not, I think is the best as far as stepping up in the pocket. I think he's the cleanest there. His throw out of sacks are incredible. I mean, it is so hard to bring this guy down, and he does such a great job of getting rid of the ball, throwing out of sacks, and not turning the ball over. AR-15 is, people are sleeping on him. People are either really high on AR-15, they're like, oh, he's a total project, you don't draft that. I don't know, man. AR-15, I think, could be the real deal. But if I'm the Panthers, I'm going Stroud. If I was the Colts and I had the number 1 pick, I would go AR-15. And I think it comes down to your quarterback, your head coach and the development there. I look at Shane Steichen for the Colts. I think he would be perfect for AR-15. I mean, he just went through it with Hurts. And I think for Frank Reich, he needs to go get a pure quarterback. I think he has some work he can help Stroud out with for sure, but I think Stroud is probably the guy. So we'll see. We'll see, though. Good luck to y'all. I think that's an interesting thing. You guys gave up a lot, man. You better hit. You gotta hit for your franchise's sake. All right, we're gonna go to Brian, Raymond, and then Steve-O is the order. What's up, Brian?
Hey, what's up, Jesse?
How you doing, man?
Really good, pretty good. Big fan. First time calling in. Your Niners content's top tier, so happy to talk.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you.
Actually, in reference to that last comment you made regarding Stroud and Stroud and AR-15, I feel like it is kind of relevant in hearing like some of the commentary in reference to Trey Lance with the Darnold signing, which is kind of mind-boggling to me that everyone assumes that signing Darnold means that Trey is now expendable. And it's crazy to me, like justification that a lot of people will make. Like I heard on the Ham podcast, and they mentioned that all these traits that Shanahan seems to desire right? A big arm to push the ball down the field, some mobility. And they mention these traits as a reason why Darnold could be potentially looked at as a starter. And at the same time, completely disregarding that, Trey has these same traits in spades beyond Darnold, and only maybe limited action might be the one knock that they say against Trey, even though I feel the last few games that we saw Trey looked relatively good. I still think he has the best, like you were mentioning, pocket presence with AR-15. I feel like Trey gets a lot of that same criticism, but he's by far, I think, the best pocket. I feel like has the best pocket presence of any quarterback that's been on our roster in some time. Seems like the only one willing to move around within the pocket and look to deliver the ball down the field, usually into later progressions, what we saw like in that Houston game in 2021. But it's just, again, crazy to me that people will at the same time say that all these traits are why Donald is such a, has this potential to unlock the offense, and just completely disregard Trey. When we've seen Darnold with these traits fail in the NFL. Of course, he wasn't with Kyle, understandably, but we've seen Trey being able to maneuver the offense, obviously have limited potential. And to me, despite the fact that Darnold obviously came with a high pedigree coming from SC, but I think Trey was a better prospect coming out of the draft as far as pure traits, football acumen, and then his ability. As far as he dominated, despite playing at some consider lower competition, he played with similar competition. He dominated. Right. We saw Darnold is stacked with a team that he was on. We saw him make some questionable things. He had some questions coming out of the draft. Many feel he was overdrafted, all right, when he went to the Jets. But it's just that part is crazy to me. I just wonder what your thoughts are in reference to that Darnold commentary and how it relates to Trey.
Yeah, it's funny because people look at the money that Sam Darnold got. You're going to have to overpay if you're going to try to talk a guy into being a third string quarterback, possibly, who easily could get a backup role anywhere else.
Jimmy
So
Garoppolo.
you're going to have to overpay a little bit. When you total the money up of the three quarterbacks, it is still under $15 million. He's getting paid less than Trey Lance. So let's be clear about that. And you're absolutely right. I threw out a tweet yesterday talking about this exact thing. It's funny to me that they went and got a guy who fit Trey Lance's athletic profile. Why would you do that? That tells me that you prefer that athletic profile. So now you've got Trey Lance here. And if you look at Vegas, this is very interesting. Some people may not look into this as too big of a thing, but Vegas isn't wrong very often. Who do they have as the comeback player of the year? Number 2 behind DeMar Hamlin, which obviously DeMar Hamlin would, be the guy. If he even plays a game, he's winning that award. Totally understandable. They have Trey Lance. When you look at the MVP award, they have Trey Lance way ahead of Brock Purdy. I think there's a reason for that. I think that they know what's going on here. I think that Trey Lance is certainly going to be given his shot. And I think that there's another thing that we have to look at here. Imagine being Jed York, and Jed York has had his hands in this organization many, many times before, almost to a fault, let's say. Mm-hmm. When Shanahan and Lynch got here, he kind of just stepped back and let them do their thing. But imagine being Jed York, and you had Shanahan and Lynch come sell you that, hey, we want to pay Jimmy Garoppolo, and we want to trade everything we have to get up to this number 3 pick to get our guy. You go and get your guy. You tell him, hey, we're going to sit him just for a year. He's going to start next year. Now he breaks his leg, and you're possibly done with him after this time. Jed York, is thinking to himself, hold on a second. You talked me into trading all of our assets for this kid. I didn't make any money off of him. By the way, we didn't get to market him ever as our starting quarterback. We never went full market mode to make my money back. And I haven't even seen this kid play yet. You don't think that I would be shocked if Jed York isn't thinking that to himself and probably isn't having some of those conversations behind the scenes saying, listen, I don't care. We got to figure out what we have in Trey Lance. You are the one that sold me that he needs to be here. We gave up all of our assets. We haven't marketed this kid. He's still on the roster. Figure it out. Don't be surprised if that conversation happens behind the scenes either. You still there, Brian? Oh, I think I lost Brian. All right. Well, maybe I lost Brian. We'll see. We'll see if he comes back in. I'll give him a second here. Brian, you there? I don't know. I can't hear. Hold on. Let's try again. One more time.
Still there?
Brian, you there?
I'm here.
Okay. I don't know what happened. I lost you.
I think a call came through. I was using my device. I don't know what happened.
I got you.
No,
You're
I
good. You're
agree
good.
with those conversations for sure. And then, despite all the media chatter, I still have a hard time believing like what we were being convinced of last year or during the draft, and when Trey was drafted, is that Shanahan was pushed into this pick. I just have a hard time believing that, knowing what we know of Shanahan. And then likewise, from what he described as what his ideal quarterback would be, I feel like he can have that in Trey. And I just have a hard time to believe that he's ready to move on for, again, no knock on Purdy. Purdy played awesome, rooting for that kid, him as a person. I just have a hard time that he's going to hamstring himself yet again with someone that might potentially be limited, right? And limit what his vision of this offense will be. I just don't believe that.
Yeah, I'm with you, Brian. I think that we are definitely going to see Trey Lance this year, and I think a lot of people are we're going to find out. We're going to find out. There's going to be some copium that has to be taken for sure, because we're going to find out. And if this kid is good, I'm going to let you know right now, chat, I will be insufferable. I will be insufferable.
Because the Twitter trolls have been insufferable. So I look forward to it. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother. You have a good one. All right.
Dude, take care.
All right, Brian. Good call. Good call. I saw Panda, dude. You were saying that Detroit took the L? In what? What did you guys do? Maybe I missed something, but if you're talking about Emmanuel Mosley, you didn't take an L on that, brother. You guys got a steal. $6 million for Emmanuel Mosley? Steal. Absolute steal. Andy's on a prove it deal? Yeah, you guys. So maybe I missed something else. Joey. I don't know how to break this to you, but you guys went from a mediocre quarterback to another mediocre quarterback who is hurt all the time. You're not making the playoffs. I'm sorry. And I don't want to be that guy. I appreciate that you're in a Niner chat spamming it. I love it, man. I really do appreciate it. I don't want to be that guy to tell you. And so hopefully I said it quiet enough to where nobody else heard me. It'll just be between you and I. But Jimmy's not that guy, all right? All right, nobody else heard that. We're good. We are good. No big deal. Oh, you guys signed David Montgomery. I don't think that's that bad. Is it? David Montgomery? What did you guys, for how much? I don't think it's that bad. I'm willing to bet anybody that Trey Lance is here to start the season. Anybody wants to take that bet, I'm willing to do it. All right, Raymond, coming to you, brother. What's up, man?
How
you doing?
Doing good. How you doing?
Doing good. You're scratchy too, man. I don't know what's going on with StreamYard. I think it's a StreamYard thing. I'm gonna kick you out. Maybe. I'm gonna have you leave and come back in, okay?
All right.
Yeah. Man, I don't know what's going on. StreamYard, disappointing. Steve, I'm gonna come to you next, okay? And then Monsa, I'm gonna come to you afterwards. Oh, that's not bad. For Montgomery, that's not bad at all. Now I get it. You're probably upset because I know who he's replacing, but I don't think it's that bad. Like, that's not a bad deal. Montgomery's a good player, I think. He's a good player. All right, Ray, let's try it again.
All right, you can hear me?
Much better, yes.
All right, cool. Hey, so I want to get your opinion. What do you think with what's left out there on this team for needs or wants? You personally, what would make you think this year, what would they have to do based on who's available to be a successful free agency? What would you need to see?
Oh, man, see, the thing is going into it, I had a very realistic expectation. I knew that Hargrave was a guy that they were looking at, thanks to Marco. He said that was their number one target. I heard that in late February. So there was no surprise when they signed him. And obviously I was happy about the signing, especially when you look at it in the money that they're paying him and how they structured that deal. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah.
But I didn't expect to not upgrade on the offensive line. And at least as of yet, that has not happened. Now, I know a lot of people are like, well, you don't know who's, behind and who could come in next year. And, we got some young players that might step up like Banks. Maybe. I mean, who's the right tackle? Unless they move Burford over to right tackle. I mean, I think most of the guys that you would assume are going to step up that were kind of redshirted last year would be guards. So unless that's the move, I don't know how you upgrade at tackle. Now, we'll see. I mean, there's really only one right tackle that hit the market, or any, one tackle really that like hit the market that was better than McGlinchey, and that's Brown.
Yeah.
He wants to be a left tackle, or at least he wants to get paid like one. He did play right tackle in his career. I do know that there is a connection there with Trent Williams, as far as Trent Williams was kind of his mentor in college. So I think, there might be something there where it's like, hey, I'm only going to play one more year. The 49ers can pay him left tackle money, and then he can kind of come in and be the right tackle this year and then slide into left tackle. I don't know. Like, that might be a pipe dream, but that's kind of where my mind's at. I don't know. They got to get some depth, though. They got to get some depth in the secondary, and they've got to get some. They got to get somebody at right tackle, man, for me to feel comfortable about it at this point. What about you?
For me, I'm not sure if the Bradbury guy was a huge, significant upgrade. I've heard, hey, he's excellent in movement. Got a little more lateral quickness than Brendel does in the run game, and so I could see why that would make more sense to go after a guy like that. I think part of their reasoning in bringing Brendel back is, yes, they probably contractually it probably made sense for them, but also Forrester is a big supporter of Brendel, and as long as Chris Forrester's here, it's probably going to be hard to shake somebody that he's trying to tell the team you should keep. Hey, you should sign this guy. I think he can play this in this system well. So I think that's one thing that made it a little more likely that they were going to keep Brendel this year. But in terms of right tackle, I had a feeling that they had two positions that they were going to not really put a lot of money out for. I felt like this year they weren't going to put a lot of money out for right tackle, and I felt like they weren't going to put a lot of money out for the free safety position. I felt like they felt comfortable getting a cheap deal with Gibson and a cheap deal with the right tackle, and that they would draft those positions. I think those are most likely you're going to see two of those positions out of the three compensatory picks are going to be filled with a right tackle and a safety, most likely. Now, just in terms of what they have done, the one that probably bothered me the most, but I understand why they did it, is probably Emmanuel Mosley. And the reason being is not because I don't think he's replaceable, but because I thought E-Man was going to get at least 12 mil. At least, at minimum, I thought Mosley would get around 12 mil. So the fact that it was half of that made me think it was much more they were much more capable, I thought, and especially with the little rumor that it came out that they were wanting to match what a team would be giving them. So I don't know if that was just static in the air out there with that comment and that rumor, or if they were really trying to match an offer for E-Man. But yeah,
I think it's possible, and I don't know how true this is. Somebody in my comment section was saying that the 49ers, that Mosley was the one that kind of chose to go away from the 49ers. Like, they were willing to match, but I think players want to be wanted. You're seeing it with Lamar on a much bigger, grand scale, right? But I think players want to be wanted, and so they just want the offer made. Like, if you like me, then just make me the offer. Don't wait for somebody to pay me, and then now you want me back at that price. Like, no, that's not how it works. And some of these players want it. I will say this. I agreed, by the way. I had come to terms. I knew we would lose Ward. McGlinchey, I said, hey, we're not going to be able to upgrade at right tackle this offseason. It's just not going to be a possibility unless, something crazy happens like we just talked about with Brown. But realistically, I don't think we're going to be able to upgrade at right tackle. However, I do think we can upgrade at center. And I said I thought Pochik and Bradbury were upgrades. And I also thought that they would be in the $9 to $12 million range as well. And they weren't. They were in the $6 and $5.5 million range. And so the fact that they were in on Bradbury, presumably in on Bradbury, because the way that deal fell, it was very funny. Bradbury gets announced, and then like 2 minutes later, Brendel gets announced. They were in on Bradbury. Just give him $6 million a year. That's not a lot of money. And I think he was a clear upgrade, in my opinion. I know that you may not be as sold, but I do. And so that was a way for me to say, okay, maybe we take a step back at right tackle. We get better at center, and at least overall we can remain kind of whole on the offensive line. Now I look at it and say, okay, we stayed the same at center. We're getting worse at right tackle, presumably. What are we doing? Okay, that's where my thought is with things.
Yeah, with the secondary, I think the one thing that maybe is going to look odd to us right now is them not heavily investing in it. But I think that's more of maybe they want to see how Steve Wilkes' development of the DBs back there. Maybe they want to give him an opportunity in this draft to help them and identify somebody who he thinks can contribute to the secondary as a depth piece. Because I think unless this corner or whoever we take in the draft is better than Charvarius Ward or better than Lenore or better than Womack in the slot, then not a lot of guys who are going to probably get drafted where we're at who are going to come in and take over that spot. So maybe it'll be more of a development thing with Steve Wilkes. I'm interested to see that. I do kind of want to see if there's a difference on the back end this year.
And I like Gibson, by the way. For the price that they got him, I have no issues bringing him back. And I half expected it. I think a lot of us did, but man, they have no depth at safety anymore either. And to rely on somebody who's 33 to have another really, really good season. I mean, last year was a resurgence for him. So I think relying on him to A, stay healthy at 33, and then B, play even half as good as what he did last year, because that was an incredible year for him. Maybe arguably the best of his career, if not like the second best of his career. He had a really good season with the Bears as well. I mean, I think that's tough to rely on as well. And so I don't know. I mean, I think there's some calculated risk there. To your point, Wilkes is a secondary guy. And so maybe they're just trusting that he'll be able to pull it together. They'll get him some maybe other young players in free agency or in the draft, develop either an Ambry Thomas or Quantrez Knight, something like that. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, for sure. I think the one position that they are still going to address in free agency, though, that they're not, I don't think there's going to be, like, if I thought about how much they're willing to pay, I think for a Jadeveon Clowney, a Robert Quinn, a Yannick Ngakoue obviously would be ideal because of the age. He's probably got more tread on the tires, but I don't know if that's the guy they're really fighting over maybe right now. I'm not sure, but I would say if it's not Yannick Ngakoue, I could see them doing a 1-year deal with Robert Quinn or Jadeveon Clowney to kind of rotate with Drake Jackson on that edge over there.
Oh, I'm with it. I'm with it. Quinn, Houston. I don't know if did either of those. I don't think Quinn got signed. I don't think Houston has either. I mean, either of those guys I would take. I think, adding a depth. Hell, I would take them both. You're probably not going to pay either of them a lot of money. I'll take Quinn and Houston. Like, let's get them both. We do that.
I think the Clowney and Quinn intrigue me because even at their older age, coming from when they were younger, they were always just freak athletes. And even at an older age, I think they can still contribute. Those two players. I know
Houston did have 9.5 sacks last year, though.
Houston is more of a. He's never been like the most athletic, but he's very strong. He's got very good pass rush moves. Seems to know how to use his leverage really well. I think Houston's just a solid pass rusher. Kind of reminds me of remember Elvis Dumervil?
Yeah.
Kind of feel like that, where those guys are just excellent pass rushers, man. I don't know what it is, but even at their old age, they still get it done.
For sure, man. I totally get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. So we'll see, but I think we're going to hear probably some news of an edge player soon. Hopefully not too long, but I think that's the next position they go after, and then the rest I think they're going to go in the draft.
I think so too. I think that's probably where the next splash comes in, and possibly Yannick could be the guy, or maybe some of those other guys. But I wouldn't be surprised if they're in on Yannick right now.
Yeah, that'd be dope. So let's see what happens. Hey, thanks,
all right, brother. You have a good one.
All right, man. Peace.
Later. All right, let's get through these super chats, and then Steve, I'll get to you. Thank you for being patient, brother. Tommy Huxley says, Jesse loves Jimmy and hates Josh Allen. So true, man. So true. 49ers Faithful says, don't pay too much money on defense in today's NFL. Yeah, I mean, for me, I don't oh, it's all good, Mike. It's all good. I don't mind paying money on defense. I have a personal philosophy of how to build a team. It goes quarterback, offensive line, defensive line, in that order. But the 49ers seem to go defensive line, quarterback-ish, and then offensive line-ish. I don't know. I don't know what their philosophy is other than for sure like defense. Yes, absolutely. They go heavy on defense. So I don't know if I agree with that philosophy. It's worked for them really well, and these guys are very smart. This is what they do for a living. So much smarter than I. But until it wins a Super Bowl, I reserve my right to say that I'm not sure that they're going about it the right way. But we'll see. Twisted Clown says Raiders fans pumping their chest over Jimmy G. Must be only one. Yeah, Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. It's very, very, and I understand that a lot of them are over Carr. I totally get it. You watch Carr for a whole career, you don't win any playoff games. I do understand that. But going from Carr to Jimmy is not, I don't think, what they think it's going to be. Like, the grass isn't always greener. You know what I mean? The grass is not always greener. So we'll see. Monza says, had to drop out of queue. Sorry, man. Been dying to talk with you. Always live when I have dad duties. If you were Lance, what would be on your list that you pass to the QB coach in areas to work on? 5 things. Holy geez, 5 things? 5 things. I don't know if I can come up with 5. Okay. I still think that he has to figure out how to marry his feet with his arm. I don't think his mechanics are near as bad as what some people think at all. But it's still a little bit of a work in progress. And so at the very least, just making sure that you've got that refined and that you continue to work on some of the things that you worked on last year, which was a shorter front step so that all your arm mechanics are right in line with your feet. I think that is probably the biggest thing. Man, for Trey, it just comes down to me. It just comes down to playing. I mean, everything else is there. Literally everything else is there. And that's why it's hard for me to come up with 5. One of the things for sure is just making sure that he trusts what he's seeing. He sees it. He's smart. He knows what he's seeing. Just trust it. Trust it and fire away. But that's hard to work on in an off season. Like that's more of a you got to play to figure it out type of thing. And then I would say the final thing for me is just trying to like quicken up that release on short, quick passes. So I feel like even when he's drilling, they had that drill that they were running where they like quickly give him the ball and he has to turn and fire to what would essentially be like a screen pass. He always has to like get everything perfect. It's like he's thinking about throwing the ball in those situations. You can't think. You just got to grab the ball, whether you have the laces or not, fire. Grab the ball, fire. So for me, I would say those are the 3 things. 2 of them they can work on. One of them is just going to have to come with playing time. So I'm sorry I couldn't give you 5, but I also don't think that Lance is like that far away. I don't think that there's a lot to work on with Trey Lance. A lot of people think that he's just like Krusty the Clown with his mechanics and can't do anything right. And that couldn't be further from the truth, in my opinion. So Jay Dizzy says, Mosley is very good when he's not being carted off the field, a la Jimmy Garoppolo. 12 games in 2020, 11 in 2021, 5 last year. He's injury prone. Right. But he wasn't going to break the bank. It's $6 million. He is half the price of what we thought he was going to come in at. So if he plays half the games, I'm willing to pay him $6 million because in those games that you're mentioning, 28 games, you add in the playoffs, I think it's been over 30 games. I could be mistaken, but I swear the stat was over 30 games without allowing a touchdown. Mosley is a really, really good player. $6 million on a prove-it deal. I don't know, man. That's hard for me to pass on. I understand where you're coming from. I get it. But what is the depth piece right now? What happens if somebody else goes down for a couple games? Who is it? Where are we at right now? Versus if you bring in Mosley and then you start Diamador Lenore at nickel, if Mosley goes down, you move Lenore out to outside corner. You bring in Womack, you're good to go. You've got the depth. Now you don't have that depth. So for $6 million, I think it's worth it for the depth. And quite frankly, as much as I love Lenore, I still think at this point, Mosley has proven more than Lenore in this league. I think he's a little bit better than Lenore. That's just me. Errol says, what do you see Kyle doing with the 11 picks now that free agency moves have been made? Man, there's still some free agency moves to be made. Hopefully not running back. I definitely think they're going to get a tight end in this draft. If we don't re-sign Gold, they're going to get a kicker. That's going to happen. And then I think secondary for sure. And then they're going to beef up on both lines, offensive and defensive line is kind of where I see them kind of going. But we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully they take a best player available approach and just fill out this roster however they see fit in the draft. But as long as they don't take a running back, I think we're good to go. You think the 49ers use picks for trade, draft, or both? Yeah, I mean, last year they had a ton of picks like they do this year. They didn't make any trades. That was kind of surprising. I would be shocked if they don't make a trade again this year and they keep all the picks. I don't know. So I would say they make some sort of trade for sure. It would be weird for 2 years in a row for them to make like 10 plus picks without moving whatsoever. So I think your betting odds are in favor of them making some sort of trade. Let's see. Make sure I didn't miss anything. All right, let's go. Steve-O, we're coming to you, and then there's nobody else waiting. So if you want to call in, now would be the time. I can take a few more before I get out of here. So link is pinned to the top of the chat, and we can go from there. I want to say this, Joel, I'm gonna get to this. I have a theory on this, so I'll get to it after Steve-O. What's up, Steve-O?
What's up, Jesse? Can you hear me? Because I can barely hear you.
I got you. I got you.
All right, cool. Yeah, I just started calling a couple of weeks ago, so my balls finally dropped. So this is kind of cool.
I know. I've seen you in the chat forever, brother. I'm glad that you did finally decide to call in. Yes.
Yeah, I apologize. You know, you and Rob and Sunil, you guys were my favorites, but I had to take a break after that magical season fell apart and just didn't catch each other at the right time. But
No, I totally feel it, man. No need to apologize. I appreciate that you support the channel. So definitely no need to apologize. And a lot of people, by the way, do take breaks after the season. They just need to kind of chill out for a little bit.
And you know me, because I'm always like, we need to draft a left tackle that doesn't, show his moves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're always getting on me about that. You're like, hey, is he still tipping plays? Like, yeah, he's still tipping plays, man.
So I have a question. I mean, if you don't want to answer, it's fine. It's not exactly like player related, but it is a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
So most of my content creators that I follow are from the same person, so I respect them for that. But do you think that a person that's credentialed should be able to, like, literally, they say whatever on their YouTube, but they're credentialed, so they talk to the players? That's one thing. I'm not going to get into the past, but then to be like on Twitter at a certain like Bears team and say, hey, don't sign number 69. Like, do you think that validates like not being credentialed, or how do you see that?
I think it's a really interesting topic that you bring up here. I think what a lot of people don't understand is that the team has some power with credentials, but they don't, like, once you have credentials, it's really, really hard to lose them. Even writers are protected a little bit by the NFL. And
it's the NFL.
What was that?
It's the NFL.
Yeah, exactly. So, the NFL protects them a little bit, and they have basically like a union that they work through and work with. And so it's, unless you're like, it would take a lot to lose a credential. And I think I understand, like, maybe, as a fan, like how that could rub people the wrong way or what have you. But I mean, it's just kind of part of the nature, unfortunately, whether you think players deserve it or not. That's kind of where we're at. I don't, social media is an interesting deal, and I'm not big on social media, but I have a big enough following where people irritate the hell out of me, and love doing so. Like, they think like, all right, like, if I can get under Jesse's skin today, then like it was worth it for me. So imagine being a player with millions of people following you, trying to do that every day, trying to agitate you. I think that would be a frustrating thing. And so I understand kind of where you're coming from on it.
Because I mean, at that point, is literally almost messing with people's bread or chicken or whatever you guys call it these days. But
Yeah, I think the hard part though, Steve-O, is like how much so? Like, do you really think like teams are paying attention to like beat writers? Like, oh, don't sign this player. Like, no, that's not happening. Like, that's not going to mess with anybody's money. The Bears or whoever isn't looking at somebody's Twitter account that they don't know, and they're like, hey, this beat writer is saying XYZ. We probably shouldn't sign him. Like, that's definitely not happening.
That's fair, and I appreciate you actually answering the question because I don't think anybody else would.
Yeah, I mean, I think I understand where you're coming from. I think it's a fair question, and I also don't think that you asked it in a manner that was out of bounds by any means.
So yeah, like I said, I haven't called you in a while, so I don't know your thoughts about a lot of things. But I mean, what NFC team has improved better than us right now? I mean, I know we lost a few pieces and everything.
Better. Oh, nobody right now. I still think here's the thing is the 49ers, I think, have taken a slight back step to this point. However, the Eagles have been decimated. Like they've just been absolutely taken out, devastated over there. They've taken a major back step. Seattle and Detroit are the two teams that I'm personally looking at and saying, hey, these teams are quietly getting better over here. They've got 2 first-round picks. They are going to make some noise this year. And in fact, I went as far as to say that I think the Detroit Lions are going to be the team that the 49ers are really going to have to tussle with to possibly make it to a Super Bowl next year. Not the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, maybe a little bit premature on that one. We'll see. But I really like what Detroit's doing. I really like what Seattle's doing. I like how they're building out their organizations. And I look at Philadelphia and say, man, they really went all in last year. I appreciate that. But they're in a cap situation where they can't retool near as well as they did the year prior. Now, they also have 2 first-round picks. So if they hit on those, they're going to be okay, I would imagine. But I don't think it's a lock that the Philadelphia Eagles are the team that the 49ers are fighting with next year.
No, I actually didn't want any of the Niners D line because they were all like over 30 and wanted 10 to 15 million.
Yeah.
But I'll take it. But what's funny, you were talking about Vegas earlier. Vegas actually has, of course, us winning the division, but they actually have the Rams favored over the Seattle Seahawks as far as winning the division. That makes no sense to me.
No, absolutely not. That's a horrible bet. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all. They might want to update their books. I don't know if they know that they lost Jalen Ramsey over there, but yeah, they might want to update those books for sure.
Yeah, and one last thing, I think we're gonna, with our 11 picks, we're gonna take a kicker with one of them, and then we're gonna trade the other 10 for Lamar Jackson.
Hey, that's a great way to end the call, man. Way to piss the chat off. I absolutely love it.
Thank you, sir.
All right, later. Nice, Steve-O. That was good. That was really, really good. All right, Francisco, I'm going to get to you in a second. Joel says, did Ambry Thomas really regress that much? Okay, so here's my theory. If you look at Ambry Thomas, I stood up for him a lot his rookie season. I thought he did a lot of things really well. Really, really well. And if you watched him play in and play out, I thought he played just fine. A lot of people got upset at him and they look at the plays where he gets cooked once a game and they think he's trash. But if you watch him play in and play out, he played pretty well. However, if you follow Ambry Thomas on social media, he went on it seemed like a huge spiritual journey this last offseason. And I love that. I mean, I think as a young man trying to find yourself spiritually, I have zero issue with that. And I think there are things that are bigger than football. And so if that he felt was like the biggest thing that he needed to improve in his life, I have zero issue with him doing that. However, the way that I saw the situation is possibly he poured everything he had into that spiritual journey. And because of that, some of the football stuff might have taken a back step. And so maybe he did regress because I think even if you're staying the same, you're kind of regressing because you need to be improving at all times, especially in the NFL. Once you're here, man, there are people that are fighting for your job tooth and nail. There's young players that are being drafted every year that want your position. So, yeah, I think that to me, that's how I read the situation. I may be way off base, but it just seemed like every single time that this man tweeted last offseason, it was like spiritual journey this and God this and God that. And again, as a man of faith, I respect it. Like I said, more important than football, but I think that probably took over for the desire to get better in football, at least for an off season. That's the way I read the situation. So I don't know. We'll see. Mike says they're looking at NC State's kicker. Didn't miss one at the combine. Also, they said Gibson has had a good offseason. And it was Wilkes' call. Okay. Hey, no issue there. I don't think Gibson's a bad player by any means. I just think it's really hard to rely on a player to have a resurgence the way that he did, have arguably his best year at 33 years old, and then expect that happens again. I don't know. I just think it's a lot to ask. They need some depth is all I'm saying. Basically, that's in a roundabout way. I'm saying they need depth. Miguel says Trey Lance is going to be a special talent in the NFL. I'm not convinced Brock Purdy is the guy. Kyle and John are falling in love just like they did with Jimmy. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know who is with who. I do believe that the front office, that there is some difference of opinion on who they should play, but I don't know who's on whose side. I don't know. I mean, time is going to tell. Time is going to tell. But I do think that there's something to, possibly Jed York saying, hey, like, play this kid. I need to know what's going on here. He was very involved prior. I'll put it that way. Prior to Shanahan, prior to Lynch, he was very involved in some of that decision making, and he's been kind of hands off. Maybe that's going to change this offseason. I don't know. All right, let's go to Francisco. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up, Jesse?
How you doing?
Good, you. I wanted to actually touch on the Trey Lance and Brock Purdy conversation.
Yeah. Go ahead, shoot.
So like with us signing Sam Darnold, I'm hearing like a lot of other creators and like just people in the media talk as if like it signifies like we're trading Trey, or that Trey is like he's at the battle with the position with Sam. I personally see it as him being the third. And even if Trey Lance gets into a QB competition with Brock, I still see him beating him out. I just want your opinion on that.
Yeah, I mean, I personally don't see it that way at all. I don't see that this means Trey is on his way out. The way I see it is they signed a kid with an athletic profile that's actually very similar to Trey Lance's. An athletic profile that they liked in Sam Darnold prior to coming into the draft as well. They were tied into Jimmy G, and so they couldn't really kick the tires on a guy like Sam Darnold. And then they did, in fact, draft that athletic profile in Trey Lance. And so when you go get that athletic profile in free agency, then that tells me that that's a quarter. You would probably prefer to have a guy like that versus a guy like Brock Purdy. Now, that doesn't mean that Brock Purdy can't win the job or do really good and win hearts. But I think the preference is you would prefer to have that athletic profile. And so saying all of that, to me, I think Sam Darnold does a couple things. I think one, it is insulation in case Brock is not able to come back as quick as they think. Maybe Brock starts out and misses the first 4 games of the season. They put him on injury reserve to start the season. And then, Trey Lance, their starter, and they need a backup. I think that is a real possibility here. So now you've got a for sure backup. Now, when Brock comes back, depending on how Trey plays during this time, maybe Brock becomes the starter. And then now you look at Trey Lance and say, hey, you know what? We gave it the chance again. It's just not going to work out. Maybe they trade him at the trade deadline, or they just want to have 3 quarterbacks just in case. I mean, I think that it gives them flexibility and it gives them insulation. But I don't at all look at this and say, okay, so now you're going to trade Trey Lance. What if Brock's not ready week 1? You're going to roll with Sam Darnold and feel comfortable about that and then not have a backup to him? That doesn't make any sense. Trading Trey Lance makes zero sense at this point. I personally don't see where anybody could draw that assumption from this situation, at least not any time before he plays a few games this season at the very, very least.
Right. Oh, and also like, so on like the defensive line, like I'm seeing like a lot of people on Twitter like overreact, saying that we lost like a bunch of players like Omenahu and Ebukam. I'm not really that stressed about it because I feel like Drake Jackson will take that next jump, and I feel like with their like track history with like drafting people in the low rounds, I feel like they could find someone or even trade up to the second round with the thirds that they have, or even get someone like Ngakoue in free agency. Just want like your opinion on that.
Yeah, I don't have an issue losing the players that they lost. I expected to lose those players actually. So I'm not freaking out. I think that they're probably going to sign a free agent defensive end, whether it's Ngakoue or some of the other players that we've talked about tonight. So I'm not worried about that at all. I don't think that's an issue. For me, it was more where I'm kind of coming from and saying, hey, the 49ers aren't quite as good today as what they ended the season. You lost Mike McGlinchey, which I fully expected, but you had a clear upgrade, in my opinion, in Bradbury that was right there. Ended up re-signing with the Vikings for a very, very cheap price, much cheaper than what most people would have anticipated by a wide margin. And you could have paid a little bit more to get him and upgraded at center, and then at least as a whole, the offensive line is as good, if not a little bit better than it was last year. You opted not to do that. And then you've lost all your secondary depth. And Emmanuel Mosley was a guy that I thought, yeah, you know what? He may not come back. He's going to be expensive. If he's $12 million a year, that's a really hard signing to make. But that wasn't the case. 1 year, $6 million. I mean, that's not a lot of money. So for me, when two guys were a lot cheaper than what you expected in Bradbury and Mosley, and you come away with neither of them, that's where I'm like, okay, I think maybe hindsight's 2020 here. Going into it, I would have said, hey, we may not be able to get these guys, but for as much as they got paid, I think there was a realistic chance to get one or both of those guys, and they got neither.
Do you think that like the restructuring of like Fred Warner's and like Treverius Ward's contracts is them just trying to balance the books, or do you think it's them trying to free up some cap space for a big move?
Oh no, it's freeing up cap space. So Charvarius Ward was to free up for the signings that they had already made. And then that was before they re-signed Brendel, by the way. So now that basically puts you right up against the cap. Restructuring Warner allows you to go get another player and then also look at signing your rookie class. And I also expect that they're going to restructure CMC. I mean, those were the three restructures that I had happening this offseason going into the offseason. I think it made a lot of sense. When you had $8 million going into the offseason, you have those restructures, that puts you to about $45 million to spend. And I think that that's exactly what the 49ers are doing. I think they're following the plan pretty much exactly the way that I thought that they would.
Cool. Thanks, Jesse.
All right, Francisco, you have a good one.
All right, you too.
Later. That was a good call. And I do. I think that I think from a restructure standpoint, the 49ers are doing exactly what was expected. Now, the one thing I did not want them to do, and they haven't done yet, and there was talks about it, restructuring Armstead. Do not restructure Armstead. Do not restructure Kittle. And do not restructure Trent Williams. That is a for sure no. Do not do any of those. Make sure that you do CMC. Go get another big-time player, and you'll be good to go. So, hey, there we go. Look at this. I got my guy, and I'll probably end it on this one. Ryan Hensley is backstage. Let's bring him in here. What's up, Ryan?
Not much, buddy. Hold on. Let me throw these AirPods on, man. Let me throw these AirPods.
You're good. You got sleepy voice. Somebody fell asleep and took a nap, I think. He didn't hear me. We'll see. Yeah, Menahu. But remember, they lost Frank Clark. So, I mean, Frank Clark is better than a Menahu. I think it was a good signing by the Chiefs, but I don't think that they ended up getting better by any means. So, what's up, Ryan? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, cool. For some reason, my AirPods aren't working, man. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. You got sleepy voice. Did you fall asleep?
Yeah, dude. I was up till I don't know why. I woke up at like 3 a.m. last night. I was planning on calling on your show early, but I laid down. I'm like, let me just, a little shut eye, and it turned into a long shut eye, man. But glad to be here, bro.
Well, I'm glad you made it in, man. I was getting ready to jump off, but I still got time. So let's talk a little bit. You and I were having I'll preface this here. You and I were having a sidebar conversation, and you asked, why do I think that the 49ers have gotten worse? And like, basically, why am I unhappy with the way the offseason's played out? And so I think I clarified it to you, but I'll do it again here. I'm not upset at all with how the offseason's played out. I don't think that it's been terrible by any means. And it's so early on. There's still so much they can do, Ryan. And I know that there are names that they are in on, and I feel good about those names. Plus, they still have the draft. So it's not like doom and gloom. My whole point was, at this very moment, you take the players that were on the roster going into the offseason, who we've lost, who we've brought back, and who we've signed. I think at this very second, the 49ers are a little bit worse than what they started the offseason with. That was my whole point.
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying there. By the way, that hat is fire. I got to get one of those.
Thank you, bro.
I don't know if you're selling those as merch, but yeah, nice hat. Yeah, to me, last week, I think it was last Tuesday, I had a show, 10-step plan for the 49ers.
Okay.
And honestly, everything they've done. Now, I wanted Ward, but I figured they wouldn't be able to. I figured Gibson was more likely. But honestly, everything I put on that plan is what's happened so far. Plus, they signed Hargrave. So to me, I'm like, hey, this is cool. Maybe John Lynch caught my show, man. No, but it really is.
Yeah, exactly.
It really is what I expected. I mean, I'm actually surprised because, they only had $8 million cap space going into it. And, considering what they've been able to do, I think it's great. To me, what's going to really set this offseason off is if they can move up in the draft and grab a right tackle. Then I'll be thrilled with what they've been able to do so far. It sounds like, though, they might be still going after an edge. So that's yet to be determined. That restructuring Warner is a good sign that they're going after another edge. And, losing a Minahu kind of sucks, but he had 5 sacks. It's pretty expensive what they're signing him for only 5 sacks. So far, man, we haven't lost anyone that I thought we'd be able to keep. And I'm actually, I'm used to being pretty damn negative, but I'm okay with everything so far.
I feel it. Okay, let me say this. Nothing that has happened thus far has been a big surprise to me.
Mm-hmm.
I know that I had the tweet out there that was like, hey, I don't think for the first 48 hours that the 49ers are going to do anything. What I didn't say in that tweet was the 49ers aren't going to make a big splash at some point during this offseason. I did know that they were in on Hargrave. Marco let me know that on the 21st of February. So I knew that was a possibility. I just didn't expect it to happen immediately. That being said, nothing else has been a major surprise other than, and you and I talked about this a little bit through Twitter, but I knew they wouldn't be able to upgrade at right tackle, Ryan. I thought that the upgrade they could make could be at center.
Mm-hmm.
So when Bradbury was there and Pochik was there, and they ended up going for a lot cheaper than what the market was supposed to be for them, they were in on Bradbury. And I think you had your show earlier when this happened, but what happened was the Bradbury re-signing from the Vikings got announced, and 2 minutes later, Brendel got announced. So that tells me the 49ers were in on Bradbury. Yeah. Once they weren't able to get him, they just, okay, we'll turn the attention to Brendel and we'll get that done. So they kind of had him both on the phone there type of thing. Bradbury went for much cheaper. They didn't upgrade at center. Okay, a little bit disappointing there. And Mosley was a guy that I thought could be gone for sure. But I also expected that he would get closer to $12 million and maybe a multi-year deal. Neither of those happened. He got paid half, and it wasn't a multi-year deal. And so for me, when I look at it and say, okay, coming into free agency, I didn't necessarily expect these things to happen. But when the two things that I wanted them to do, which was upgrade at center and keep Mosley if they could, were both very, very possible from a money standpoint, and then they did neither, that's where I'm like, okay, I think for me right now, slightly disappointed is how I'll say it.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I actually thought Brindell was solid. I think it's basically, what is it, $5 million? It's really 2-year deal, but it's 2 years, 4 years, $20 million, which is basically 2 years, $8 million, something like that. I think it's a good price, and I think they're probably believing like a Zakelj or a Poe for that role in the future. To me, I'm okay with Brindell. It's really that right tackle spot that concerns me. I'm really just believing that they're going to move up in the draft and get a guy. I feel like they have to, and maybe they'll do what they did with Burford last year and kind of just ease him in the first year. I'm not sure. I think Colt McKivitz will probably be like more rotational. To me, that's the biggest position. If they can upgrade that right tackle position in the draft, I'm going to be cool with it. As far as Emmanuel Mosley, man, like I really like him, but I think Lenore played good, man, and Mosley hasn't played since week 5. I would have been happy to have Emmanuel Mosley, but I just think his health is a concern. And there's also a ton of corners still available, and the 49ers still have a bunch of draft picks. So I think I'm okay right now with what they're doing, as long as they continue to build this team in the draft in a couple of positions. Like right tackle is going to be key, as well as like safety depth, corner depth, and then we still got to figure out what they're going to do on corner. But overall, man, I'm usually pretty damn critical on these Niners, but this is kind of what I was planning for and expecting. So I think I'm okay right now. And to be honest, Hargrave was a surprise for me. So that's a plus. I didn't even expect us to get a Hargrave. So this is better than I expected. Maybe my standards were too low. Maybe that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the 3 restructures, and I was just talking about them right before you came on, but I thought Charvarius Ward was kind of on the bubble as a guy you could possibly do. For sure you do Warner. For sure you extend Bosa. For sure you restructure CMC. And then maybe you do something with Charvarius Ward if you need the extra money. And they went ahead and did Ward first. They've now done Warner, it sounds like the chat was telling me happened while I was live here. And then CMC is still out there. They can certainly do. I knew that they could go and get a big name guy or possibly 2, depending on how they structure those contracts. So I looked at it a lot like last offseason, where it's like, okay, they went and got one big name guy in Charvarius Ward, but then they went and beefed up depth for sure. And this offseason, it's like, okay, they went and got the big name guy. They haven't gotten the second big name guy yet. They still can, but they also have lost a ton of depth. I mean, we're talking a ton of depth. And so it's like, if this is truly an all-in season, well, they got to make sure they go get another second big name then. Like, if they're going to let this depth kind of be ripped away from them a little bit, then you have to go get that second guy. Absolutely. They've got to get a second big name, and they have money to do so. They do have money to do so.
Yeah, I think we'll probably see something when it comes to defensive depth, like defensive back depth or edge soon. I think that's something we'll probably see soon, and I'm hoping they just really go all in at the draft and grab like an awesome starting right tackle. If they do that, man, I'll be pretty happy. The one thing that's funny to me too, in regards to the response that you're seeing on 49ers Twitter, is Sam Darnold, man. That's kind of the talent level quarterback I expected them to get, and everyone's thinking that's like signals that Trey Lance, they don't believe in. I'm like, that's what I expected the whole time. So I think this whole thing's kind of interesting. But so far, man, I'm not too hard on him like a lot of people. But again, it's not over, and it also depends on what they do in the draft. Now, if they go into the season with Colton McKivitz as the starting right tackle, that's when you're going to see me complaining quite a bit.
Yeah, that's fair. That's totally fair. Totally fair. I think if they get a right tackle in the draft, I wouldn't be horribly mad at it. I think it's hard to think that a right tackle in round 3, which is where they sit now, they could certainly trade up. But as of now, getting a right tackle at the end of round 3 and saying that guy's going to come in immediately and be better than McGlinchey, I mean, I think you're almost banking that your offensive line is going to take a back step from last year. And I think the offensive line already wasn't great. It wasn't horrible by any means, but it wasn't great. And now you're almost planning on taking a back step. Now, unless they go, which, Orlando Brown's still out there, We'll see what happens there. I doubt that happens, but that's a possibility as well. I mean, you're likely taking a back step, at least early on at right tackle. And I think that's kind of the issue is like, hey, you kept the same center. You might presumably take a little bit of a step forward at right guard. You've got a young rookie there. And I think it's okay to think that he'll probably get a little bit better, but most likely your offensive line is going to take a slight back step. And that's not something I want with either of the quarterbacks, whether it's Purdy or Lance. Like, I don't want them to not have the proper protection.
I think to me, as long as I agree with you. In round 3, there's no day one starter that's an upgrade over Mike McGlinchey, in my opinion, at right tackle. That's why I've been saying they got to move up, and I think they will. As long as they do that, I think, obviously Trent Williams is the man. Banks is the man. I like Brendel. I think he's definitely a decent center. He's like a B center. I think Burford's probably going to take a step up in year 2. And so as long as they can grab a day one starter with a high ceiling at right tackle, I'll be happy. So to me, we have to wait till the draft to kind of tell. But if they can grab that right tackle, move up in the second round and draft the right tackle, they can just take best player available on pretty much everything else. Some safety depth, some corner depth, and they could be in a really good spot. So we'll see, man. I think we still have to see what happens. If they grab a dope ass edge right now, I think we'll all be feeling a lot better.
Yeah. I mean, you go get a Yannick Ngakoue or something, then all of a sudden, I mean, you're cooking with bacon grease on the defensive side of the ball, at least. So, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see how that thing plays out.
Yeah, absolutely, man. But thanks for letting me call in, man. Sorry I'm a little late to the party, but it's better be late than never, right?
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. I'm glad you were able to make it. We'll talk soon,
man.
all right?
Yeah, man. I got to get that hat, though. But thanks, man.
All right, bro. I'll let you know. All
right. Nice to talk to you.
All right, man. Later. I love Ryan, man. He's a really good guy. He and I really clicked. I didn't mean to. Did I get rid of the other dude, or did he dip on his own? My bad. I didn't mean to do that. If I did, I don't think I did. I might have though. Shoot. Dang it. There was somebody waiting, and they fell out. But I don't know. I don't know if it was me that clicked on. My bad if it was me. Definitely didn't mean to. If you're in the chat, let me know. I'll kick the link back out to you, and let you get on. It might be my bad. But no, Ryan's a really, really cool dude. He and I have really kind of clicked behind the scenes a little bit. We understand each other a lot. And there's just a mutual respect there. He's a really, really good person. So shout out to you, Ryan. Ryan G. Hensley. If you are not subscribed to his YouTube channel, check him out. And what's up, Louise? I don't know. I mean, there was somebody waiting. It might have been me that kicked him out. I definitely did not mean to. That being said, since there is nobody now, I'm going to dip out of here. I'll be on tomorrow. Double dip. Grant Cohn, 49ers After Dark. And then right after that, I'm going on with my guy, Larry Krueger. So back-to-back shows. Check me out over there. Until then, peace.